All right, hey folks. So today I'll be talking about people with big appetites and my tip for those of you who have big appetites and try and make life a bit more sustainable. But firstly, before we get into that, thanks for tuning into my channel. If you have any questions or comments, pop them down below. And if you'd like to work with me on your own strength and physique goals, there is a link in the description. So this is kind of a reply to Abel Csabai from the Sustainable Self-Development Podcast, who's also on YouTube. Really great guys, it's amazing content. And he made a video, I don't know, a few months ago now, detailing his tip for people with a big appetite. And I will pop that down in the link below and let you guys have a watch of it. So I encourage you to go and subscribe to him. He's a good guy. Now, I've got another tip for people with big appetites. And I think for me, this is something that's worked quite well. So let me firstly describe the problem. Now, most people who come to want to diet have got to the point where they're overweight. Okay, now they're overweight because they typically have a big appetite. All right, so they have a big appetite. They've always ate a lot. Now, before they came into the fitness field and they've been educated on what to eat, they've just ate regular food. Right now, you take one person with a genetically small appetite versus somebody else with a genetically large appetite. They're eating the same, just standard, Western diet. Well, one's probably going to be fatter than the other one. So I imagine a lot of you come to this with that situation. You've just ate regular foods and your appetite has led you to the point where you're just overweight. Okay. Then what happens next is you find the wonders of a whole food based approach. So you eat lots of high volume foods, all that kind of stuff, and everything is swimmingly for a while. It's like, great, this is amazing. Like, I remember when I first discovered the power of vegetables and potatoes and God knows what else, and really high volume eating, that it was amazing. And it's great for like a couple months, a year maybe. And eventually what happens is your appetite gets to the point where you're almost training yourself to have a larger and larger appetite. So the meals slowly get more and more extravagant. And then they become more and more, they become more and more frequent. Okay, so it started with me. I remember when I started having lots of vegetables with my meals, I would have something like 400 grams of fibrous vegetables with another couple hundred grams on top of potatoes, maybe 200 or 300 grams of potatoes. So we're already up to 700 grams, right? And then a couple of hundred grams of chicken. So we're up to like 900, and some beans. We're up to 1.2 kilos of food per meal. And at that stage, it's great at the beginning. So at the beginning, you eat that. And that's it. You're tapped out all day, like all day. It's just, that's it. I just don't want to eat anything else at all, ever. And then eventually, slowly, what happens is that one meal fills you up for less and less time, right? So you've got all this great food coming in, but then quicker and quicker, maybe that food would have lasted you for 6 or 7 hours initially. Then it starts to last for about 5 hours. And then after 3 hours, you're getting hungry. And it got to the point once when I had just eaten something like a kilo and 1.2 kilos of food, and I was hungry immediately afterwards. And I was like, this is a problem. I've got myself a problem here. I've trained my appetite for a big problem. Now, Abel presents his own solution, so by all means, go ahead and watch that. But I want to present something else. But I firstly just wanted to highlight what the problem is. Okay, so that's the problem. Now, you can do what Abel said in the video, which is to control your appetite and eat more mindfully. And all these things are really, really good tips, and I've tried them all. But I want to present you with something else, which is perhaps a bit of more of a blunt force hammer, which helps in my experience. So I went through a long period of time, for many years, where I did a lot of fasting. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Now, I had my first bout of fasting when I was a lot younger, probably 2009-ish, when I did actual long-term fasting. Now, for the purpose of this discussion, I just want to clarify what we refer to as fasting versus what we refer to as time-restricted eating in the research now. Okay, so time-restricted eating, TRE, refers to packing in all of your food for the day in a shortened eating window. Now, I'm sure you guys have probably heard of the, 16-8 eating window, right? The whole Martin Burke and Lean Gain thing is very popular. So you have a 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window, and that's your day. So you might eat between, 1 till 9 p.m., 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. on any given day. That's not what I'm talking about. Now, why is that not what I'm talking about? Well, if you think about the problem being that you're training your stomach to have larger and larger meals, well, what does TRE do? you're packing in all your food in a 8-hour eating window. And often people who do that, they tend to measure their calories, so they ensure that they have all their calories in that 3-hour eating window. And if you're having all those calories with a high volume food base, because you're coming off eating other high volume food and you're trying to pack it into an 8-hour eating window, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to stretch your stomach out even more. Now, I'll just pause there for a second. I don't know for certain if stretching the stomach out is the sole reason why we get hungrier and hungrier. I can only speculate. When I say we don't know, I don't know, we don't know. I'm not sure it's actually proven yet what does it. I think there are a range of physical and psychological reasons which explain why we end up wanting more and more. But I think one of them possibly is stomach size, because we know that the stomach has a high degree of plasticity and it adapts very quickly to food volume. So this is the problem where we start with, isn't it? The problem we start with is food volume, right? Because we have a high appetite and then we have high volume, which is great for a couple of months. And then slowly, before you know it, you're eating like 10 kilos of food per day and walking around looking like you're pregnant. It's no good. So the solution that I want to present to you today is to an actual fast. So I've established that TRE is not what I'm talking about. Okay, so we've identified what the problem is. It's a very specific problem for a very specific audience, which probably encompasses a lot of you. Now, the solution then is not TRE, which is a restricted eating window. The solution is to actually do a fast. Now, what I generally do, and it's not something I want to recommend, so I'm not going to sit here and say I recommend this, but what I generally do is I will do a 24-hour fast about once a week. Now, what that does is it serves the purpose of being a long enough portion of time where you just forget about the meals. You're not trying to make up the meals. So it's not like you have a 24-hour period and you try and replace the food. The idea is, and this comes from back in the day, Brad Pilon wrote about this years ago, and he said, you do your 24-hour fast and you just get on with your day as you were. You just have the rest of your meals as they are. You don't try and make up for it in any way. You just get on with your life. And that's the magic of it. So you're not trying to overly indulge your stomach. So what happens is, over the course of those 24 hours, it almost acts as a bit of a reset of your appetite. It at very least attenuates your appetite, the desire to eat more and more and to really fill your stomach. So you can still fill your stomach, but the point is the stomach capacity is less. So it becomes easier to fill your stomach with less food, or for the same meal to fill you up for longer. I've noticed this consistently happens every single time. As soon as you do a fast, boom, you get it. It's probably one of the best ways to kick off a diet because it almost immediately reduces your appetite. So here's kind of, let's talk a bit more about it first of all before I kind of round off. So I've done it for many years. It works very, very well. It seems to reduce appetite. I suspect one of the reasons is actual stomach capacity, because the stomach is has got a high degree of plasticity. And I think that's the cause of the problem in the first place, because your stomach just adapts to higher and higher volumes of food. So I think it's a very good solution. Now, I've used it in the past and it almost immediately makes the diet easier. So the diet model that I use, I don't tend to track calories. And I think that's possibly not that normal, but it's becoming increasingly more normal for people around and for it to be an actual proven diet model. I know that Abel is also a fan of that too. So I don't track calories. So essentially I eat to appetite for the most part. So what I have to modulate is I have to modulate my appetite. So it's all well and good saying, well, count your calories and don't go above that. But what I would rather do is eat to appetite and just modulate my appetite based on these factors. So I can do that via, eating higher degree of high volume foods, but then we run into this problem, right? So this is my solution for that problem, is that after a while, still don't track your calories, but do a 24-hour fast. And what that will do is it will reduce your calories. Therefore, the amount of food and the quantity of food and the calories in that food which you need to get to that full point is less. Voila. That is how it works. The point is really to try to live, I'm talking about dieting for life, really. I'm trying to live without having this constant battle of willpower. And I think that's where the whole MyFitnessPal calories approach, it's very accurate. But if you don't have the education alongside that of what to eat, then it can be its own worst enemy. So if you make that 2,000 calories up or whatever with protein shakes and Pop-Tarts, then you're going to have a bad time if you have a naturally big appetite. And I think those people with naturally big appetites, they tend to wander into the whole Whole Foods, habit-based style of eating. But then you get problems like this. And what I'm describing here is a solution for that problem, at least my solution. So the solution would be to do a 24-hour fast. Now, let me talk you through how I typically do this. So I typically do this on a Sunday night to Monday night. The reason being, Monday is generally my busiest day of the week. I have more work to do on that day. I still like to hit the gym as well. So that tends to be a very busy day for me. So I tend to fast most of Monday. So like today's Sunday, I'm recording this on a Sunday. I will more than likely start a fast at about 6 p.m., something like that. And 6 p.m. tonight, and then I will eat 6 p.m. tomorrow. So I will manage my training. So I'm training at about 4 or 5 p.m. tomorrow. So I can get back home, have some food, and then I can break the fast, a full 24-hour fast. That's the way I do things. Now, in terms of what you need to know for a 24-hour fast, I think the two biggest things for just a 24-hour fast is hydration. And that will be composed of lots of water. So I would recommend something like, about 3 to 5 of these liter bottles over the course of that 24 hours. You're not going to need much in that first evening because then you're going to need to sleep. But certainly for the next day and the duration of that day, make sure you're having plenty of water. If you experience headaches, which is quite possible if this is the first time you're doing it, then perhaps something like some salt would be a good idea. This is just what I do, and I don't necessarily want to recommend people doing this because it's one of those areas where it's potentially a bit irresponsible, but I'm just saying this is what I do, and it works really, really well. And I have done it with clients, and it works very, very well with them to reset the appetite. So it might be something to consider. So anyway, water and electrolytes for the headaches is generally a good idea, but above and beyond that, in 24 hours, you're not going to have any kind of massive deficiencies. Things like magnesium, for example, tend to become more important the longer you go. So into 2-day fast, 3-day fast, 5-day fast, things like that. But this is one scenario where I think fasting is a good idea. Now, you might be sat there thinking, well, what about my precious muscles? My hard-earned muscles? Yes, I get that. And you're right. There probably is going to be some muscle loss, but it's not like it's going to be falling off your body. And then it's a case of the trade-off, okay? You've got to make the choice on the trade-off. Let's say you do fit into the category of someone who I'm talking about. You have a massive appetite, and you find a lot of these strategies have varying levels of success, but fasting works for you. Well, it may well be worth the trade-off to keep yourself leaner in the long run, which means less time dieting because you've put on less weight, easier time with your day-to-day diet, your regular base diet, and just might make life easier. Just means that you're potentially not gaining muscle in as fast a rate as you would do previously. So life's always a trade-off. There are very rarely black and white great options compared to bad options. So in this scenario, I admit that you probably are going to lose some muscle over the 24 hours, but then I'd also say it's not that much, and the trade-off is potentially worth it if it means that you have an easier time overall and you potentially spend less time dieting during the course of the year. That's my argument. All right, I think that's about it. That's my big tip for big eaters. Hopefully you found that useful. It's a problem that I've encountered. It's something that I've dealt with this, and it works the best for me. As I say, it's a very blunt force trauma approach to the problem. It works. Right, folks, I will call it there, and I'll see you in the next one.